After mother's death, for which he cared for 5 years, the son found a closet and accumulated money. Next note. This turned out to be a testament, which brought his horror. These were the hardest years. I never thought that of my mother's 3 children I will remain and one senior left us and went abroad. Fine lives for himself, don't think about bad things. For I haven't called in the last 5 years, did not ask about health and well-being. Cold eye, but always clashed and argued with him. But he never called his mother. 2 mothers, but in those 5 years she survived 2 strokes, because of which she almost stopped walking. Most of the youngest of us didn't even think about visiting, lives on the opposite side of town, and is raising her children. My mother does not come. Scary thing, but we've never seen her before. After weddings, doing business, such a man should not shine with such beggars like us. Sister, whom I always gave everything to, cheated on us, left her future above family ties. I don't blame anyone. Understand, that has matured, and everyone independently begins to build their own destiny. If they manage to break away from the family nest, I could not. So already gone, that along with the difficulties of looking after a sick mother, almost all household duties fell on my shoulders. We didn't complain, we had the means to live, and our mother received a pension. But I worked on the internet, creating stylish thematic images for websites. In general, it turned out to survive after another attack, a little subtly hinted to me, that will rewrite the will, when the time comes for the eldest. This is not at home for men until the only daughter is unlikely to agree to change an excellent apartment in the center. Overall, I understood that all the goodness of the Soviet period will remain with me. When I found out, I immediately adjusted the work schedule a little. Usually worked with design from noon to 6 in the evening, but now all my work is concentrated only in the evening. Thanks to the conventions of the schedule at work, I not only managed to cook food, but also small problems at home, where you need to overcome the cement, mortar walls, plastered ceiling. Overall, in one such difficult year, I did not have time to put the house in order behind in the winter, kitchen and home. Dismantled all the sheds, which have not been used for a long time. The house has gas, no need for wood, the remaining decks sold. For several months of careful housework, I felt like a real owner. Mother constantly worried, tried to do simple movements, go to the toilet or change clothes. Yes, when he took away the left side after the second cerebral hemorrhage, it became even more difficult, but she denied that all this is causing problems. If only I didn't worry about such simple trifles. Gradually my workload has dropped, because there is no room left in the house that needs repair or replacement. For over the years a simple teacher turned into a jack of all trades. Previously, before this difficult period, nobody, even a runaway father, didn't believe that I could leave the house or take help with car repairs. I really was. I had no interest in construction or mechanics, worked only for himself, raised and taught children at school. Though my brother and sister gradually began to keep their own money in themselves, I continued to replenish the family budget. Yes, we won't go far on it, the teacher doesn't get much. After I took up tutoring, which added another 1,010 to my salary. And as a result, together with the maternal pension 10,000, they had almost 40 for 2. For a few years my sister and brother, like parasites, lived on our necks, and didn't invest a dime. Tell me a variety of vile and hypocritical stories in the intention to save up for their property. What say we helped for many years before my mother's stroke, but worked, as long as they came out in public. It happened. Joy there was no limit, because now they can help as much as possible. But on our shoulders fell harsh, unimaginable shackles of reality. They immediately started ignoring us, rarely answering the phone. I'm already silent about coming to visit. Here we were alone. I quit his job, when did the second stroke occur, because hiring a nurse is too expensive. Here so for insignificant 7 years of work for the well-being of relatives and found himself without his happy future. Agree, it's horrible. If you remember my achievements, then my lessons filmed would be so viral on YouTube that many directors of the best schools tried to persuade me to work for them. Because of my mother, I even refused employment on the territory of the Russian-speaking settlement of Canada. I was already so accustomed to those duties that I couldn't imagine someone else. Watch you after your mother. I don't know, maybe it's a mental illness or an obsession, but at the last moment, when I almost agreed to another offer, Mom got worse. The doctor said that it was a stroke. He took away the opportunity to move, turned the mother of a bedridden invalid. Another once had to refuse potential and attractive offers. Time went slowly. A year or two I joined the new work regime, where the key job was babysitting. Feed, take it to the toilet, etc. Not very pleasant things have become commonplace. I stopped feeling discomfort for a long time and did everything. Sure, my mother began to turn into a child in my eyes. To the wise, but in a child. All the deeds regularly made her cry, start a conversation about a will. Yet again, is there a toggle switch in my head, or something else but such conversations I myself instantly discarded. She thought that I would soon wake up in the house alone, scared. Well, I couldn't wear inner feelings for a long time, because of which he began to lean on the bottle. Alcohol numbed the pain a little, let me dream for hours. I do everything for myself. Yes, it was an illusion. Slowly addiction began to consume I'll, without turning even a dried beaten man, who can no longer hold on. Mother prompted, helped with advice, but it wasn't enough. When I suddenly discovered that the money began to disappear too quickly, he dared to accept several students at home. Thanks to vodka slowly faded into the background and soon disappeared from the house altogether. I started feeling a little better, when there were children's voices past my voice in the house. A boy filled up among all the pupils, but did not want to study at home only with me. They managed to figure out math, English, and reading. Plot orally, because of which he seriously missed classes. Naturally, that the boy was lagging behind, he got into fights at school, many bullied him, called stupid, and so on. Even the class teacher did not see him as a potential student. What scared you the most? Ignoring problems provoked by the isolation of the boy. Exactly, it brought his emaciated, lonely stone mom. Initially, I consulted with Lee's mother. She will have to endure it, because I won't be able to answer her call. She agreed, said that no old woman will cost the future generation. I was angry at such words, though I knew she was right. His mom doesn't know that trouble could pull me out. Asleep, Lee, if I warmly rejected with my heart all the approaching problems. But with my brain I was aware of the imminent death of my dear parent. And this thought often accompanied my severe depression. Many people think, what a weakling and the like. Deny I will not. I thought so too, until I started working with that boy. Despite its complexity, his problem was taken much more seriously. Second grader without friends, constantly subject to bullying from peers and complete disregard from teachers caused greater resentment than pity. Yes, I started working with him. At least women paid me for an hour of classes, and sometimes stayed for more. To me, half a year was enough to turn an insecure child into a worthy student with a level of knowledge above the average. Not, I will conceal, I had a little affair with his mother. Her husband left her, for was afraid of responsibility, and she alone pulled him. I started with not communicating, not pity or compassion. She was really strong in a straight line. How my mother invested in her child, didn't leave a second to rest. This is scary, because it was things like this that made my mother disabled. The boy was not particularly against it, because in his eyes I was more like a superhero. They are teachers. When he was doing, he left the conditions. If he will try, learn, and so on, then 10 to 15 minutes after the lesson I will devote it to computer literacy. So it came out, so this very simple motivation worked great on him. Efforts reward, and from my side. Child understood, saw that I care about his success, and out of habit, continued to try. At school, behavior became reserved. I am happy with this amazing result. A happy mom made me even more happy. She literally glows with happiness. Instead of a troubled bully loser, she saw the future support of her son, for which it is not a pity to squeeze my genuinely happiness for me. Sometimes during classes, the mother of the child sat and talked to her. Hard to say what. They are not very eager to bring me up to date. Slowly, but non-stop, she and the child moved to live with me. Here the former got along the same with another woman and threatened the courts for the division of property. Naturally, such stressful situations are unlikely to lead to a positive result, the more it would affect the boys. Here I offered to move. She surprisingly didn't mind. My mother was also sincerely glad that I finally had a decent woman next to me. Great women's conversations have remained a mystery to me. But one thing is clear, Mother gave her blessing for family life. Marvelous, that it didn't require looking after her, deferred pensions if possible, hernia, and just to help us, young. Slowly in the house, which many years ago was filled with our children's voices, began to fill with life again, almost forgetting that the 3-year-old Modi, when it's all alone. Certainly Mom helped, but by moving the roof, she was not able to plant a garden or dismantle unnecessary buildings. And now, when I could live by them as a strong helper in the form of my beloved, the desire to develop further, look for prospects found out. Small started calling me Dad, which motivated me even more. Body and the mind are accustomed to plowing until you drop. So I got a job in construction. The school collapsed not long ago, and people were needed for and from the nose and a new project. Treasure that I already know what and where and how. I came home after work, which is clean, removed cooked food, and most importantly, happy faces of people who are really dear to me. After 6 in the evening I managed to return to work on the internet, but no one cancelled the responsibility of the form of families. Wanted not to need anything. Tuned in so good, that was enough for everything, even pension. Mother was not needed. Wife and soon began to call, didn't turn my nose, when you helped, took care of my mother. To me seems, what she and even loved, like a mother. It seemed that everything was perfect. I am happy and I make all my people happy. This could have ended this frank story, but that's where it all starts. When Small went to 7th grade, he suddenly got into an accident, when he went to the regional Olympiad with a mathematics teacher. This was a tragedy, which made our wife invest all the money in his rehabilitation. More total spinal injury. If do not perform surgery quickly, then he can become disabled. Having extensive experience caring for the disabled, I understood that this should not be allowed. Has begun the most difficult period in my life. All the accumulated money, which was originally supposed to go to restore the health of the mother, I had to invest in the operation for my son. When it's time for this conversation with a sick mom, then with tears in my eyes I can say straight that he is not ready to give all our savings to her. This was terrible. Not one son could not act so selfishly, like me. I expected that she's mad at me, scolded or something. But no. My mother could hardly raise her hand and put it on my cheek. It turned out that she has been trying. Mira says that you no longer need to spend on its maintenance. She didn't want to be a burden on me and my family. My decision was so easy and simple that I even laughed. Such reactions I could not expect, because in the accumulated money is her and the pension for these lands. Represent how much money she gave away without remorse or other pipe thrust for the sake of restoring her grandson's health. Yes, she took the guy, which initially, only being Nikon, for a real granddaughter. What is the true duty of all parents to do their best, so that their children can live well. I plucked up courage. Some didn't sleep for days, trying to realize their future actions. This moment has come. The operation was successfully completed, further 2-year recovery period of leg function. When the doctor told us that everything went well and there was no need to worry, the phone rang. This was a neighbor, who asked to look after his mother. While we were the wife of the capital, I often helped her. Therefore, she also did not remain indifferent to the problem and agreed not to look after her mother at all. Her voice trembled. I clearly understood that she was crying. Heart began to beat with unimaginable frequency. All the noise instantly became irrelevant to me. It seemed like one of the happiest days of my life. I heard the tragic news that my mother died. Double hit on the psyche, where I didn't understand how to behave. Son managed to save it, but Mother, who has been with you all your life, Now he will never be able to go out the door and wish good morning. Tears, joys, and tears of sadness mixed. I barely put on a smile, not to upset your beloved. She also cried, but from happiness. But little. I am also unable to hold back the tears, because the son manages to return to normal life. But the next morning we were already at home. Doctor said that for about a week you should not disturb him. The rehabilitation period will begin when they complete the collection of analyses. That there was no sense for us to be in the clinic just at the door. Here at that moment, when we were on the train home, I told that Mom is no longer with us. She also cried. Sincerely, and Freneau was also a native. To not draw attention, I asked you to hold back. Moreover, it is still necessary to prepare for the funeral. When we came home, they quickly fell to their knees before their mother, who was already able to spend the last night in her home. Pathologists clearly established the cause of death, therefore, there was no doubt about the naturalness. Despite a series of horrific events, these belts we started preparing for the funeral. God did not cry. It seemed that all the tears have long since left us. Indeed, inside my soul I thanked my mother because of her last decision. I felt, what is the right time, when she can calm down, ascend to heaven, to make things right, and dared to take a loan, for all the money is now the capital. One day, when my wife only looked at each other, then Mama started talking about her funeral. Yes, they were ridiculous, funny enough, what is there to hide? You, in the midst of all this, she was able to seriously say only one thing. She wished to be buried in a dress that hangs in the closet. This I remember clearly, so we dressed my wife in that dress. When I climbed into the closet to take the right clothes, I found a small bundle. Initially, he didn't make me feel anything. Little is there that it was sealed, would never be able to open it, damaging the stamp. Putting it on your table, I continued to prepare. It was a sunny day. Bright. This was wonderful, because my mother did not like cloudy weather and stuffy. The sun also accompanied her on her last journey. My wife and I managed everything that day, and the only, which is not particularly encouraging, is to meet my sister and brother, who supposedly regret their mother's death. Then I never spoke to them. I tried to always be on the other side. Hi-he's, which mothers lowered, we all said words of sympathy. Familiar, the neighbors knew that only I stayed close and did not quit. That's why native older brothers and native younger sisters are more like outcasts than sufferers. Only the next day, when you say goodbye to your mom, they move home. Realizing the complexity of this conversation, I tried to protect my wife from conflict, but she insisted, what to be around, because this is her house, and also explained that they didn't mourn their mother so much. How much did you think about this dialogue? Sister and my brother, without further ado, offered to buy their part of the house, otherwise they will start a lawsuit over the distribution of property. That has these people glad to name their fortunes insolently, without undue modesty declaring to me their right to a part of this house. This was a real shock for the wife and those parts, and told how well the relatives settled down. Seriousness they were easy to see by the eyes, especially for the older brother. Naturally, I tried to prepare for such a conflict, but the indifference on their faces plunged me into a real stupor. I couldn't say a word, only with a sweet wife put my thoughts in order. She not only allowed me to wipe my feet and these people, but also protected the memory of my mother. I once again with admiration realized how happy I was. Forgiven by the fate of his wife. She hugged me and said that nothing would give these people. Not home, not the health of dear husband until I, and that day she sent them out the gate, loudly slammed the gate, alluding to that this is not a house. They we forgot for a few weeks. Then he managed to transport the son home. Fine, what is distance learning, and he managed to catch up with his classmates. We told without hesitation what happened to Grandma and tried to support him. Slowly everything was restored. I returned to my old life. Son, seriously. Task S. I intend to become a surgeon. He studied online, did internships, etc. I am not qualified in this field. I in a few hours with him engaged in a favorite prescribed exercises, foot massage, and so on. Also started working harder, so that she doesn't think that I left them. I proved to the employer its indispensability, thanks to which he knocked out an impressive increase, which were automatically sent to rehabilitation doctors, who also regularly visited and assisted in the recovery. But this day has really come. Nam the postman handed over the subpoena to the account of the distribution of property, because the will was not found. According to the law, property is evenly distributed among the children, that is, by me, brother, and sister. Only at that moment I remembered the convolution, what was on the table. Refusing compromise, I told my wife. It revealed, what's the seal on it? It's a notary seal, that is, before one stroke, my mother was able to draw up the correct will. Wife said that let this bundle be complete until the court. Only at the time of the trial, I decided to declare that a real will exists. Making sure print authenticity, the court agreed to accept the provided smart high-grade evidence. Before opening it, I asked the judge for one favor. Looked after my mother with berries without the help of other relatives. I asked him to open the bundle on his own and read the written lines aloud, only then hand it over to the judge. Fine, that the man of the law agreed to such requests. I demonstrated in front of everyone how, breaking the seal, there was a small note and a huge stack of money. I did not take them, but decomposed, to make it hard to see. Feeling prompted that the truth will be written on this sheet, which will finally dot all I. When I started reading, I was seriously horrified. Incredibly, the truth turned out to be a tragic, crushing blow to me. It turns out that the first paragraph mentions only brother and sister, and my mother inherited the money, who were in a bundle about 500,000 rubles for 2. With each subsequent line, my eyes radiated more hopelessness and despair. My name was not visible, but the list of distant relatives has already gone. Suddenly it turns out that I was last on the list, as a person, unrelated to my mother. This terrible, unbearable truth pierced my heart, made me unhappy. My sleeves wiped away tears. What it turned out that she wrote to her mother, that I am not my own son. When the mother was pregnant for the second time, then there was a miscarriage. Naturally, that child could not be saved. To not sink into despair, Mom and Dad took me from a shelter. Here I became part of their family. At first I didn't have much hope. After all, in any case, you will have to tell the truth about the soil of this, and the parents parted. When native children left their mother and only I was left alone, then she urgently rewrote the will, revealing all your true truth. She pointed out that the house belongs to me without the possibility of dividing it among other children. Also, she bequeathed the garden and all the furniture. Practically, she copied all the things in the house that have potential value. Also, the will appeared and the spouses, which inherited a summer kitchen, small jewelry box. Although I have read and understood all of this, the judges didn't make any sense. Heart seriously sobbed from such incredible news. Bro and my sister were shocked too, because it all looked like some kind of Brazilian series. But this is the real truth. When I finished reading the will, you submitted it to the judge. So how is the document on the distribution of property? Then the brother and sister had no chance to share the house and forced me to buy. Devastated, broken, I came home, told his wife about everything. She advised me of the reason for a still fresh, grave, and sincere conversation. Not and did so over the years and never once had reason to doubt the correctness of his wife's advice. Despite difficulty, another total disaster, she was there and supported. Being next to my mother's grave, I could hardly hold back my tears, not to scream. To know the truth about yourself, yes, at such a fateful moment, was beyond me. I spoke for 30 minutes, maybe more, hard to say, and spoke everything, what was inside. After all, my mother had no right to hide such a truth from me. First I experienced a little anger at my mother. To not like the brother and sister, I immediately returned home and only he, my son, was able to bring me back. Was in Riverbed. And opened the door of the house and saw how he met me with his feet with a wide smile. He shouted at me, "Dad, look, I am re-entering." He took one step, then the second one ended up next to me. He hugged me tightly and said, "I know too, that you are not my own dad, like you, but for my grandmother, she didn't tell me everything, but it does not change anything. I know it, but they keep calling you Dad. Isn't that the main thing? Never would not have thought that I will forget such a simple thing. I am also not a father to the boy, but for some reason they call him a son and perceive him as a native. This was my story, which lasted 5 long years, and I can finally say with certainty that I'm happy.